Welcome to D2 Global News. Yesterday, April 2nd, the world witnessed a dramatic exchange. A blunt threat of annihilation from U.S. President Donald Trump aimed at Iran, immediately followed by a cold warning of catastrophic consequences from Moscow. These were not mere diplomatic statements in an ongoing crisis. No, this was thunder striking on a chessboard already thick with the smell of gunpowder. These were the latest moves in the Middle East game, where every action can decide the fate of millions and shake the global order. Since the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from the JCPOA nuclear deal, and especially after Russia and Iran signed a historic strategic partnership, all developments have been viewed through the lens of a high-stakes power struggle. So, what is the true nature behind these fiery statements? How can we decode the complex strategic calculations of Washington, Moscow, and Tehran in this high-stakes game? Let's explore together with D2 Global News. Before we dive into the main content, please like, share, and subscribe to support us. Let's begin. To understand the whole picture, we need to break down each move and calculation of the key players on this chessboard. First, the United States. The threat of bombing and secondary sanctions is not just a repetition of the maximum pressure policy seen before. It is a well-calculated lever. On the surface, it aims to force Iran back to the negotiating table in a weakened position, agreeing to a better deal, not only limiting the nuclear program, but also containing Iran's missile program and regional influence, something key U.S. allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia have long desired. However, the deeper layer of this strategy is more complex. The public threat of using force, even carrying the tone of the madman theory, is a deliberate attempt to create uncertainty. It not only puts psychological pressure on Tehran, but also sends a tough message to global competitors like Russia and China. Under this leadership, the U.S. is ready to act unilaterally, going beyond normal limits to protect its interests. Could this be an attempt to disrupt multilateral diplomatic efforts not led by the U.S., or even the first step toward regime change in Iran? The risk of a regional conflict seems to be seen as an acceptable, or at least manageable price to achieve the ultimate strategic goal. But does this confidence rest on a solid foundation, or is it the beginning of a fatal miscalculation? For Russia, Russia's reaction is not just a call for peace. The warning about catastrophic consequences from Deputy Foreign Minister Ryabkov is a direct deterrent, a clear involvement in the strategic space that the U.S. is trying to dominate. This move serves multiple purposes. First, it protects Moscow's core interests, preventing a large-scale war near its southern border, maintaining a fragile yet controlled stability in Syria, where Russia has military bases, and most importantly, protecting its new strategic ally, Iran. The Russia-Iran partnership is not just a piece of paper. It is the foundation for deep military, economic, and political cooperation, forming a crucial counterbalance to U.S. influence in the region. Furthermore, Russia's proposal to play a mediating role is not just a diplomatic gesture. It's a smart move to position Moscow as a responsible power, an essential peace builder in resolving international crises, especially those in which U.S. policies are seen to have contributed to or exacerbated the situation. In this way, Russia not only elevates its international standing, but also gains significant influence over both Washington and Tehran, while challenging the U.S.'s central role in regional diplomatic processes. Is Moscow cleverly exploiting Washington's aggressiveness to consolidate its position on the global chessboard? As for Iran, facing pressure from both Washington and warnings from Moscow, Tehran is in a perilous bind. Rejecting direct negotiations under military pressure is a necessary move to protect national sovereignty and maintain dignity before its domestic population and regional supporters. However, keeping indirect communication channels open via Oman shows a pragmatic effort, trying to avoid total isolation and seeking a dignified way out. The powerful retaliatory warning, along with hints about reconsidering nuclear doctrine, implicitly suggesting the development of nuclear weapons if attacked, is part of a deterrent strategy. It's Iran's way of raising the cost of any potential attack, hoping that the adversary will hesitate. However, this is a double-edged sword, extremely dangerous. It could be interpreted as evidence that Iran truly intends to acquire nuclear weapons, further strengthening the argument for a preemptive strike by the U.S. or Israel. Iran is walking a very fine line, balancing between projecting power to survive and avoiding provocative actions that could lead to destruction. Will Russia's backing be enough to help Iran weather this storm, or will Tehran eventually be forced to make painful choices? This three-way standoff is not just about Iran's nuclear program. That is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface lies a brutal geopolitical competition and shifting tectonics in the global order. What exactly are these? First, absolute influence competition. The Middle East, with its strategic location and vast oil resources, remains one of the great chessboards where great powers vie for influence. Controlling or having a decisive say here means holding an important card in the global game. Second, challenging the unipolar order. Russia's actions and its increasing coordination with Iran and China behind the scenes are a clear sign of a world shifting from unipolarity to multipolarity. Regional and global powers are increasingly confident in challenging the U.S.'s leadership and the security and economic structures it built after the Cold War. Third, the battle for perception. Every statement, every warning, every peace proposal is part of an information war to shape global perceptions, isolate the opponent, and create a positive image for oneself. Whoever controls the narrative has the strategic advantage. Fourth, deterrence and brinkmanship. The continual escalation of tension, using extreme confrontational language and actions, is a dangerous tactic, but sometimes seen as necessary to force the opponent to back down. However, history has shown that this tactic easily leads to miscalculations and escalation beyond control. When does toughness cross the line of strategic calculation and become pure recklessness? To fully assess the risks and opportunities in the current situation, it's essential to look back at the lessons from the past. Notable examples include the Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. This is a classic reminder of how the world came close to nuclear annihilation due to distrust, misinformation, and miscalculations by leaders. It also shows the critical importance of direct, unofficial communication channels to resolve crises. Are there enough such channels today between Washington, Moscow, and Tehran? The lead-up to the Iraq War, 2003. A bitter example of how unilateral military action, based on allegations of weapons of mass destruction, which later proved to be false or exaggerated, can lead to decades of regional instability and weaken the position of the intervening power. Is this lesson being forgotten? These echoes from the past warn of the dangers of underestimating the opponent, overconfidence in military power, and the unpredictable consequences of triggering a major conflict. From the current position, the future can unfold in many directions, each carrying profound implications. What are the most likely scenarios? Scenario 1. Military escalation. This is the most frightening scenario. A limited strike by the U.S. or Israel on Iran's nuclear or military facilities could trigger a severe retaliatory response, either directly or through Iran's proxy forces throughout the region, Hezbollah, Houthis, etc. The conflict could quickly spread across the Gulf, crippling the vital shipping lanes through the Strait of Hormuz and possibly drawing Russia into the conflict. The consequences would be truly catastrophic economically, politically, and humanely. Scenario 2. Negotiation and a new deal. International pressure, a recognition of the immense risks, or effective mediation by Russia or other parties could lead to the parties returning to the negotiating table. A new deal, possibly more comprehensive than the JCPOA, could be signed. Tensions would ease, but the roots of mistrust and competing interests would be difficult to resolve fully. This is the most desirable scenario for many, but it would require significant concessions from both Washington and Tehran. Scenario 3. Deadlock and prolonged tension. This is perhaps the most realistic short-term scenario. The no war, no peace situation continues. The U.S. maintains sanctions, Iran carefully advances its nuclear program, and strengthens relations with Russia, China. Low-level confrontations, cyber attacks, ship seizures, proxy force clashes will continue. This unstable environment will erode the economies of all parties and carry the risk of conflict breaking out at any moment. Scenario: sudden change. An unexpected factor could completely alter the dynamics. A change in leadership in the U.S. or Iran leading to fundamental shifts in foreign policy. A global economic crisis that forces all parties to focus on internal issues. A natural disaster or new pandemic. These black swans are hard to predict, but entirely possible. No matter what scenario unfolds, the impacts will reach far beyond the Middle East. Geopolitically, the global power balance will be affected. The U.S.'s role may be challenged or reinforced depending on the outcome. The Russia-Iran-China axis could become more closely knit. Traditional alliances may fracture. Conflicts elsewhere like Ukraine will also be impacted. Economically, a conflict in the Gulf would cause a massive shock to the global energy markets, sending oil and gas prices skyrocketing, worsening inflation, and potentially pushing the global economy into recession. Soaring military costs would burden national budgets. Militarily, security, the risk of nuclear proliferation in the region would increase if Iran feels cornered. A new arms race in missiles and other military technologies would likely ensue. The activities of non-state armed groups could escalate in the chaotic environment. Socially, humanitarily, a war would result in a humanitarian disaster with millions of casualties and displaced persons, creating a new refugee wave that would pressure neighboring countries and Europe. The U.S.-Russia-Iran standoff we are witnessing is not just another chapter in the complex history of the Middle East. It is a harsh test of the intellect, resilience, and strategic vision of the great power leaders. This is a geopolitical game where every wrong move could cost lives and lead to prolonged instability. The mutual distrust, complex and sometimes conflicting national interests, and the possibility of miscalculations in a noisy and emotionally charged information environment are pushing the world closer to dangerous scenarios. At this point, the focus should not be on belligerence or exaggerated rhetoric, but on clarity, accurately assessing the true intentions and capabilities of the opponents, and most importantly, understanding the historical responsibility to prevent a catastrophe. Although difficult and sometimes seemingly impossible, maintaining dialogue channels, seeking even the smallest points of agreement, and prioritizing diplomatic solutions based on mutual respect and international law is still the wisest course of action. The future of the Middle East, and to some extent the global order, depends on the strategic choices made in this challenging time. Thank you for watching until the end. What do you think about this? Please leave your comments below. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel to stay updated with the latest content from us. Goodbye for now.